Hello and welcome back to the channel. First off, a big shout out to anybody who's joined the channel for membership. Really appreciate you. All the support means a lot to me. Let's jump right into the Tarkir Dragonstorm Day 2 spoilers. We've got some sweet new cards, some dragons, some tons of infinite combos to go over. So first off, we've got a new dragon here. This is a 4 mana, 4/5, the Magmatic Hellkite. Red dragon. It's got flying. It says whenever this creature enters, destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Its controller searches their library for a basic land card and puts on the battlefield tapped with a stun counter on it, then shuffles. So kind of some land destruction here. I mean, if your opponent just has no basic lands in their deck, which some decks are constructed that way, depending on the format that you're playing, um, this just straight up destroys the land. And if they do have basic lands, it does kind of comes in with a stun counter, so the next turn they don't get to use that basic land. And this card curves pretty well with Sarkin, like the Dragon Ascendant, which got spoiled earlier. Because you can play it on 2, and then you could play this on turn 3, destroy one of your opponent's lands potentially. Comes into play tapped, really set them back and attack for 3 with Sarkin. And now you have like a lot of power on the board. They're disrupted and set back. You have a clock going in the air. Seems pretty decent curve right there, right? But how do we like really use this card? Well, first of all, you could like really push into the land destruction theme. We do have Territory Forge, which can destroy a land, which is kind of sweet. And so you could maybe kind of go into like a land destruction deck in standard. And maybe that's the thing again. I don't know. It's been a long time since they've printed any good land destruction cards, but this is actually, I don't know, a decent step in the right direction of sort of a land destruction deck being decent. But maybe the best way to use this or kind of abuse this card is to kind of blink it over and over again, assuming your opponent only has so many basics in their deck. This would be very matchup dependent. You know, if you're playing as mono red, they probably have a bunch of basics in their deck. But some decks don't have that many, maybe like 1 or 2 basics if they're playing 3 color. And with this set coming out, there's such a emphasis on having 3 colors, and there's a whole new rare land cycle that I'm going to talk about later. This might incentivize people to play not as many basics, although maybe more basics. Kind of depends on really the meta. But the point is, this card could be used to destroy a land every turn if your opponent doesn't have basics in their deck, or they just run out from using every turn. So how would you do that? You have to blink it every turn. So there are some cards that can do that. Nahiri's Resolve. There's a ton of other cards that can just blink it once, which could be useful just to keep buying its effect. But Nahiri's Resolve does it for 0 mana every turn, and then it can come back in and attack for 5 in the air to put a clock on your opponent. So that could be kind of cool. It can blink all your other stuff if you have other ETBs. Maybe Extravagant Replication. You just make a copy of it every turn and destroy one of your opponent's lands. At the very least, if they do have more basics and you're destroying non-basics, they are coming back into play tapped, so it kind of is setting them back a turn of mana anyways. So this is kind of interesting. Will it be good enough for standard? I don't know. I mean, that really depends on the meta. This could just be a sideboard card. Maybe that's quite good against more of the control decks that have a lot of non-basics in them. So maybe you just kind of put that in your sideboard. But might want to try to make land destruction work in standard and see how that goes. That could be sounds kind of fun to me. So that is the Magmatic Hellkite. Let's move on to the Awakening the Honored Dead, which is Sultai, the 3 mana saga here. In chapter 1, you're destroying target non-land permanent, so pretty decent already. 3 mana to destroy anything. Chapter 2, next turn you mill 3 cards, and then chapter 3, you can discard a card, and when you do, return target creature or land from your graveyard to your hand. So this card's doing a lot of different things that are pretty useful, potentially depending on your deck. The last 2 seem to kind of be a graveyard focus, but having some removal tacked on to a mill card and a way of discarding card and a way of returning something from your graveyard to your hand. Those all are useful abilities, especially if you're playing something like Squirming Emergence, because this itself is a permanent if you mill it, or when it goes from its last chapter, it itself will go to the graveyard. So you could potentially, if you don't return something, you could, I guess, get 5 cards in your graveyard just from this, 3 from the mill, 1 from the discard, and then itself would go to the graveyard. So it definitely could put a lot of permanent cards into your graveyard for Squirming Emergence and also destroy something. So that could be pretty good. Obviously, if you're playing a Reanimator type of deck or something you want specifically in your graveyard, trying to set that up, this works pretty well for that. So yeah, I think this is great in a graveyard strategy. Other ways to use it could be kind of trying to like reuse it. Essentially, you could say you like bounce it or blink it, right? But you could also reduce the counters on it with Glissa. For example, if you played Glissa, like, or if you went like Land War Elves into Glissa, and then you played this, destroyed their creature, um, or any of their permanents, attacked with Glissa, then you could remove the last ability of Glissa is remove up to 3 counters from a permanent. You can remove counters from the Awaken the Honored Dead. It goes back to 0 counters. The next turn, you could destroy something else again. So that could be pretty good. And then keep using it over and over and over again, kind of locking your opponent out of the game almost from playing uh, non-land permanents or creatures if if they can only play one at a time. That's pretty powerful right there. So yeah, you could reuse that, reuse the mill ability, and then Calyx also could do something with this. Kind of not in the right colors, but if you say again, if you had Calyx out, you played this, destroyed maybe their one blocker that they had, attacked with the Calyx, you could make another copy of this, and that could destroy something else, and you can kind of snowball from there. So this card seems pretty powerful overall. I think definitely wouldn't be surprised if I found some home in standard. Just all the abilities together seem like it's definitely worth the value here, and other ways to kind of combo with it, I think, also make it even more powerful. So, pretty cool card, Honor Awaken the Honor Dead. Okay, next up we've got Eshki Dragonclaw. I just pronounced that right. Yep. All right, for 4 mana, this is a teamer, 4/4 legendary human warrior, vigilance, trample, and ward 1. So a little bit of protection, which is nice. And it says at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you cast both a creature spell and a non-creature spell this turn, draw a card and put 2+1/+1 counters on it. So I was trying to think, like, this card, if you just play this by itself, it's not great. Like, pass a turn, your opponent could probably kill it. Just a 4/4 for 4 isn't all that good. But if you're able to kind of get the triggered ability on this, like the first turn that you play this right away, it could be worth it, I would say. You could play this in like actually like a black deck if you're playing all Beseech the Mirror, and because this Beseech the Mirror counts as the non-creature spell, and this when you cast it off the Beseech the Mirror, and then that would count as a creature spell. So you could do that, Beseech for this, and then you get a 6/6 and draw a card with Vigilance, Trample, Ward. That seems pretty good. I mean, if this just costs 4 mana and you got to trigger it right away, that would be very powerful. You could even do this with Mox Jasper to trigger it right away. So say you went turn 2 Shivan Devastator, turn 3, play a land, play Mox Jasper, and then tap forward, play this. Now you've played a non-creature spell, and so it triggers because itself is a creature. So that could be an interesting curve, pretty good on turn 3 as well. Um, We'll see. And then later on in the game, if you've built your deck with creatures and non-creature spells, then you can kind of trigger it again. It does kind of, it's interesting with like bounce spells too. If you play like this town ain't big enough, bounce one of your creatures back, then you replay the creature. You can kind of go from there and keep triggering it over and over again, draw cards. So there's some engine potential here. I think this card has got potential. You really kind of have to build your deck around it, make sure that you're kind of able to trigger its ability pretty consistently. But overall, I think it's got a decent power level. Okay, next up, the Dragonback Assault. This is a 6 mana, again, Teamer enchantment. When it enters, it deals 3 damage to each creature and each planeswalker, so it could potentially sweep the board against like a token deck. Could be useful. But most importantly, it has got landfall. Whenever land you control enters, you create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. So pretty powerful effect there. There are fetch lands, even in standard. Fable Passage, things like that, are other ways to ramp and get more lands out. But the reason I think this card is kind of cool is because it really combos well with Encroaching Dragonstorm, which we got as well. And this is a 4 mana enchantment. When it enters, you search your library for 2 basic lands, put it onto the battlefield tapped. So kind of a classic ramp spell, 4 mana, 2 lands into play. But it also says when a dragon you control enters, return the enchantment to its owner's hand. So do you see where we're going with this kind of 2-card combo here? So if you play, say you could even use the Encroaching Dragonstorm to ramp up to 6 mana, right? The next turn you play the Assault, you do 3 to everything, right? And then you play a land, because that would be your land for the turn. Then you make a dragon, that then will return the Dragonstorm to your hand, right? The next turn, you can play the Dragonstorm, put 2 more lands into play, get 2 more dragons, and the dragons themselves would return the Dragonstorm, play Dragonstorm again. You could basically go, you can go infinite, so to speak, depending on how many, lands you have in your deck that you can search out, and also mana. But you can continually make probably like 2 to 4 and every turn you get more mana, 2 to 4 to maybe 6 dragons every turn, which will probably close out the game pretty quickly. So there's some interesting combo potential there, I think, with this card. I don't know if it's that great. I mean, 6 mana is a lot for a sweeper, and you might just be dead before you get to able to play this at all. But like against some of the aggro decks in standard right now, might just be too slow. But some interesting potential, and we'll see kind of what other kind of landfall synergies we get in maybe future sets or things like that. So yeah, interesting card. Okay, next up we've got the Winternight Stories, which is a 3 mana sorcery. Draw 3 cards, and then discard 2 cards unless you discard a creature card. And then Harmonize for 5. So Harmonize is you can cast it from your graveyard for its Harmonize cost. You can tap a creature you control to reduce the cost by X, where X is the creature's power. So essentially it's kind of flashback, but you can also reduce it if you have a creature you want to tap. So that's kind of cool. This card seems pretty decent with a few different cards in standard. Prophetic Memory, which wants you to draw a bunch of cards. 3 mana to draw 3 cards for 3 counters is pretty good. And then Harmonize, you can maybe flash it back and do it again, um, maybe that same turn as well with a creature. Or, Profs also pumps the creature's power, so that kind of makes the Harmonize easier to do. So there's some cool, interesting synergy going on there. And also, if you just want to kind of set up like a Reanimator style deck with like Zombify, discarding a creature card specifically that you're going to get back could be good. So this on turn 3, Zombify. The next turn gives you some card advantage, card selection, puts the creature into the graveyard. But also, like, yeah, maybe just like a self mill deck or any other kind of deck where you're like, if you have 2 of these, right, you cast one, you could discard the other one and kind of get some value out of it because it's in the graveyard. Just being in the graveyard gives you the ability to harmonize it back. So maybe if you're playing with other cards that draw on discard or mill, this card is pretty good too because you can get some additional value from it. So an interesting kind of piece, I think, that would enable some combos. We do have, cards that are similar to this in standard, but this, by the fact that it gets some value by being itself into the graveyard, um, I think maybe makes it a little better than some of the other choices potentially. Okay, let's move on to a Royal Possession. I believe that's how you pronounce this. 2 mana for an instant. It's green and blue. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So that's a regrowth effect, kind of unconditional. I don't remember the last time we got something just returned any card from your graveyard to your hand. It is instant speed too. This card seems kind of cool. Um, I don't know how good it actually is, but it kind of goes quote unquote again infinite with itself. Like if you have 2 copies of this, they return each other infinitely if you have mana to do that. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, yeah, you can trigger like prowess. I was thinking like the Enduring Vitality Storm Splitter combo maybe would want this because if you have 2 copies of it, they can return each other infinitely, and you can, as long as you have 2 Storm Splitters in play, you can tap to pay 2 to cast a spell, and then you get more Storm Splitters. It would go pretty easily to go infinite with that combo. We also have Inspiration from Beyond, which kind of does something similar from Foundations. That one costs 3, but you could kind of play both of those and kind of loop that way. So yeah, definitely an interesting card and something to kind of keep in mind. If there's something, if you have like Omniscience, obviously in play, you have 2 of those, you can get Infinite Storm. So maybe there's something with that. But yeah, something to kind of just keep an eye on as a tool. Maybe just using it for value to return something as well, but also can be used as a combo piece. Okay, next up we've got the Sibsig Ceremony, which is 3 mana for a legendary enchantment. It says creature spells you cast cost 2 less to cast, and then whenever a creature you control enters, if you cast it, destroy that creature, then create a 2/2 black zombie druid creature token. So this card is absolutely absurd with the amount of infinite combos that it enables. Yeah, so I'm going to go over all of them. I've got a slide for each of them because I just wanted to kind of have I don't know, a catalog of all of them. So get ready for some infinite combos. I hope you enjoy. So with Acererak and Relic of Legends, this goes infinite. You play this. If you have Relic of Legends, you can play Acererak for 1 mana. It comes into play. It will trigger, and then the Relic of Legends, you can tap the Acererak for a black mana. you can stack it so that you return their Serac rather than destroy it to your hand, and I believe you'll still get the zombie. But then you can just replay their Serac with the black mana floating, play it, tap it for black, return it, and then you get you get to go through the dungeons infinite number of times. So there are obviously other Serac combos, but this one is it nicely as an enchantment, and then you can play with Relic of Legends, which is also an artifact. So those are kind of harder to disrupt permanents that you can put on the battlefield that you can just go off with a Serac the following turn. So kind of an interesting 3-card combo, potential for Pioneer, I believe, to kind of go infinite with that, and not too hard to assemble. So, um, yeah, definitely a cool combo there. Okay, let's go to the next one. 2 Mirror Retrievers here. So if you have, I mean, this one is, I believe, modern, legal, or later than that. If you have 2 Mirror Retrievers, you play this, and then the Mirror Retriever is free, right? Comes into play, costs 0, dies, you make a zombie. If you have another Mirror Retriever in your hand or in the graveyard already, you play that, and then that comes and returns the other Mirror Retriever, right? It dies, you get a zombie, play the Mirror Retriever, return the other Mirror Retriever, go infinite with casting Mirror Retrievers over and over again, and make infinite zombies. You could do that as early as turn um, well, with I'm thinking Dark Ritual. Play Dark Ritual on turn one, play this, and then go make infinite zombies on turn one, right? Why not? I was gonna say, you could do that. Turn three, you could do this pretty easily. Say you or play some cards to tutor out some of the pieces here. So I think that's interesting. Going infinite there, it's got some potential as a 3-card combo. Let's go to, I believe this one is also Pioneer legal. Liliana, Untouched by Death, the -3 ability. It says when you may cast zombie cards from your graveyard, and any zombie that costs 2 colorless or less, and there are actually a few. There's the Razor Lash, Transmorgant. There's also any of the changelings that are artifacts that cost 2 or less. There's a changeling that costs 1, the changeling that costs 2. And then there's another artifact that just came out from Aether Drift. That's a zombie. But anyways, all you need is one of those. So the zombies are basically free. You cast them for free from your graveyard over and over again, and they die, and they make infinite zombie tokens. Right? So not too hard. It's all in one color. Could be decent. The cards are kind of okay on their own. So I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes a combo. And then we also have Enduring Renewal, which can essentially, it says whenever a creature is put into your graveyard from play, you return it to your hand. So any creature that costs 2 generic mana or less, you can play and return over and over and over again and make infinite zombies. If that creature also has some abilities, I was thinking like, because this is modern legal, I think Haywire Might would gain you infinite life. Essentially, you'd make infinite zombies and gain infinite life, so they can't like burn you out or something like that. So that could be kind of cool. Haywire might kind of already see some play in modern, so something like that could be interesting. You could also search up Haywire might with um, a lot of different effects. Urza Saga. So I don't know. Maybe there's something to that there in modern. And then of course you got the Gravecrawler Phyrexian Altar combo. Gravecrawler basically you can cast it from your graveyard for 1 mana, but if you sacrifice it to Phyrexian Altar, you get that mana back. So you just cast it over and over and over again and make infinite zombie tokens that way. So lots of combos with this. You could jam them all to the same deck and see what happens. Have fun with it. I was thinking in standard, I couldn't think of any like infinite combo in standard, but there is a few cards that are kind of interesting to think about with this. There's the Clay Revenant, which is 1 mana for 1/2, but you can return it from your graveyard to your hand for 3 mana. So with those 2 cards out, you're kind of paying an additional 3 mana for every zombie, but you can do it basically over and over and over and over again if you want to. Maybe there's some way to make that cheaper. I think with Training Grounds would make it cheaper. Would that work? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below if that works. Does Training Grounds work on creatures in your graveyard? I don't know. And then you also have the Scavenger here, the 3 mana 3/2 that says Descend 4. When it enters the battlefield, if there are 4 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So we have 2 of those, right? They're basically just cost 1 mana. They can return each other over and over again for 1 mana, and you basically net a zombie token for 1 mana over and over and over again. So that seems pretty powerful. With Spinner Souls, maybe there's some interesting potential there. Because when something dies, you get another creature and you can play it again. So yeah, I don't know, some combo potential in standard. Let me know in the comments below any other combos with this the Sibsig ceremony. I'm sure there's like thousands probably, but those are the ones that I was thinking about. And yeah, seems like a cool, pretty sweet combo card, obviously, and probably be brewing around it and see what I can do with it. All right, next up we got the Severance Priest, which is 3 mana, a white, black, and green for a 3/3. It's a Jin cleric with Death Touch. It says when it enters, target opponent reveals her hand, choose a non-land card from it. If you do, exile the card, and then when it leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner creates a token that has power and toughness. So it's a white spirit creature token that's power and toughness is equal to the mana value of the exiled card. So this card seems okay, kind of on its own. It seems just like disruptive. It could trade with one of your opponent's best creatures, and then kind of, in a sense, downgrade the card. Although it kind of gives them a creature for them not even doing anything. So I don't know. Like on its own, it seems like okay, decent against obviously a deck that doesn't have any removal. It's really good. But I was thinking like, well, how could this card actually be good? Like the downside is it gives your opponent like potentially a big XX creature, right? And we had like Phyrexian Obliterator and Bushwhack combo. So maybe, if the mana allows for it, obviously the mana is a bit of a stretch. But we are getting triomes in this set, so maybe this would work. If you played this, made your opponent exile, say, their biggest mana value card, say it was like a 5/5 or a 6 mana cost spell. Not every deck has those, but let's just say you did. It would give them, when it dies, you trade it off, you block with it, your opponent kills it. It gives them a 6/6. Now, some of the problems with the Obliterator combo is if your opponent, well, doesn't have any creatures, or if the creature that they have is kind of just like they just have a 1/1 or a 2/2 out. It doesn't really make them sacrifice that many permanents, right? So you see where I'm going from here. If you have this early in the game, it dies, it gives your opponent a big creature. You play Obliterator and then you bushwhack it. That may just end the game right there and destroy your opponent's board. So it would basically be an upside of them having a giant creature. So that's my thought process with it. Maybe where it would fit or see some play with a combo. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think about this one. It's an interesting card. Okay, and then I've got a common that I just wanted to talk about briefly. The Fortress Kinguard, the 2 mana 1/2. When it enters, you endure 1. So you can put a +1/+1 counter on it, or most likely just make a 1/1 spirit token. This I think card is good because it's an additional sort of 2 mana creature that you can get out of Knight Errant, and also enables Knight Errant pretty well. I'm trying to remember the other one. What the name of it? There's a 2 mana with flash for a 1/1 that makes a 1/1. That card seems to play in a lot of the token decks, but having a redundant copy of that card specifically could be quite good in the context of Knight Errant and other kind of token strategies. I think that could be pretty decent. And then we've got a rare Cycle of Lands, which seem pretty cool to me. So we got a white one, a blue one, black one, and then the other two are on the next slide. But the white one, and they all kind of come into play tapped based on the wedge color that they're in. So the white one comes into play tapped unless you have a swamp or a mountain. It taps for a white mana, but also 3 mana tap this. Whenever you attack this turn, create 2 red warrior creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. So that's kind of the we've seen that effect on some of the other cards that create warrior creature tokens that are attacking, but then you sacrifice them. So that is pretty powerful, I think, in a aggressive deck. Of course, land coming into play tap is not good in an aggressive deck. So you want to make sure you have enough basics for this to work. But that being said, this card, the effect is pretty powerful to be able to just essentially tap 4 of your lands to make 2 1/1s, and if you have, anything, that comes into play, pings your opponent, that triggers off of creatures dying, blood artist effects, things like that. This can just do a lot of additional damage just from a land. So I think that's pretty powerful. We got the Mysterized Village, which again comes into play tapped unless you have a mountain or forest, taps for blue, and then just one blue and tap. The next spell you cast this turn can't be countered. Um, Seems pretty decent in certain formats. I don't standard probably not that great because there's not a ton of counter spells that see play in standard. There are some. And maybe in like a control mirror, this would be pretty good if there's like counter spell battle going on. But I feel like in older formats, this card seems quite good where there are much more common counter spells, force of will, force of negation, things like that that counter things. And especially like a combo deck that's trying to like force through a specific card, this could be pretty useful. So I don't know. I could see it seeing play there. The black one here with comes in play unless you have a forest or plains tapped. Unless you have a forest or plains, tap for black. And then just 2 mana here to exile a creature card from your graveyard, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token. It could be good with Insidious Roots, I was thinking, just as a way to exile stuff from one of your lands and make tokens. And then also just, making tokens could be of value in, say, some sort of aggressive deck or a mid range deck with creatures. Could be decent. Um, and then we've got the red one. This one seems pretty powerful to me. Comes in play tapped. Unless you control a plains or island, taps red, and then 4, exile top card of your library until end of turn. You can play the card. So kind of like drawing a card off your land for kind of free, essentially, as on a land. This one seems good, maybe in a more controlling deck where the game goes long and you're getting some advantage off of it. Again, you could maybe see this in an aggressive deck, but aggressive decks don't tend to get up to like 5 mana all that often. And coming to play tapped might be too much of a downside. I don't know, but the effect seems pretty powerful. And then the green one here, allies with the islands and swamps, and then surveils 2. This one kind of seems maybe like the weaker one to me because you're tapping a lot of mana just to surveil 2. Not sure how good that is, but in graveyard decks, things like that, that it matters, could be decent. And again, if you're playing enough islands and swamps, it's kind of like a free land to some extent. Now we do have the surveil lands in standard, which do have the basic land types, so that can uh, support all these lands. If you're playing the surveil lands, it makes it more likely you'll have maybe a basic, right? And we are all also getting triome lands and uncommon. However, those don't have the basic land types, so something to keep in mind when you're building mana bases with this new set. So some interesting new lands here. Let me know what you think about them in the comments below. That is it for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know any new combos or interesting synergies that you're thinking about with standard. What are you excited about with Tarkir Dragonstorm? Any cool new infinite combos? I love to think about those, of course. So we got preview videos coming out the next week or so, and then gameplay following that when it is released on Arena. All the cool, crazy, weird combos that I can think about. So, again, thanks so much for supporting the channel. If you made it to the end of the video, really appreciate you. Um, Anyone who's joined the membership below the video, really appreciate that as well. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.